The Fixing Fashion podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
In my experience of sustainability as well, it's becoming slowly a reductive term. What does it actually mean and how can we actually engage with it?
Welcome to Fixing Fashion, where we call out the industry's flaws and spotlight the changemakers rewriting the rules. My guest today is Björn Eriksson. Björn is a Swedish fashion artist and PhD candidate at the University of Technology, Sydney. His work explores fashion within the more than human world, as a mediator between organisms, technology and materials, with a particular focus on sustainability and interdependence. Through critical, practice-led and speculative fashion research and artefacts, Björn investigates moving beyond consumerism to foster ecologies of care, memory and relationality. His projects often rework inherited or discarded textiles, creating artefacts that mediate interdependence while prompting interrogative questions about ethics, labour and use. Björn is currently a PhD candidate at UTS, where his research examines artificial intelligence, fashion and sustainability. This work is situated within a wider commitment to more than human design, artistic research and symbiotic approaches that reimagine the role of fashion in society. Björn's practice has been recognised and exhibited internationally. Welcome, Björn.
Thank you so much.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well. It's a bit cold outside. But
It is a bit cold outside, but we've got these amazing jackets. Now, these are your designs, correct?
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about what we're wearing? A big part of the Fixing Fashion podcast and philosophy for me is to wear clothes that have stories behind it or some sort of meaning. So please walk us through the meaning of these incredible garments.
Yeah. I'll start with the one you're wearing. It's a floor-length coat, essentially. And the way I've designed it is by collaborating with AI to think about the connections, the interdependencies between different species and intelligences.
Amazing.
And we talked a lot about the creatures that fashion encounters, and we sort of came to a point of understanding that, for example, the loggerhead turtle in the New South Wales and Australian area are endangered. And perhaps ways we can surface those issues is by using fashion, because fashion is one of the things that contributes to them becoming endangered through pulling out resources and being really exploitative and disturbing habitats. So what we've done is that me and ChatGPT developed a design
Good friend chat.
Yeah, good friend chat, which is a whole kind of worms to open up for sure. But what we've done is to emulate some of the features of the loggerhead sea turtle's shell patterns and crevices.
Oh, amazing.
And hopefully sort of invite this idea that there could be other creatures living within your fashions. So as it protects a human, it also protects what it encounters, the other species, animals. And
that is so beautiful. And I was having a look at your website earlier as well and seeing the different images and the way that you were able to utilize AI to make this creation. And I would highly recommend for anybody watching or listening to go check out the website. I will link it somewhere because there are some amazing, amazing things there that I think would really help to add context to this incredible garment.
Thank you so much.
Now tell me what you're wearing.
So what I'm wearing is sort of the next iteration of these types of coats. And this one, instead of sort of symbolically talking about mixing species, this one actually hosts me, but also lichen and pieces of bark. So the idea is sort of to build this surface or substrate that can be worn, but that also houses and brings habitats to other creatures and species than just humans. And sort of this idea, this goal of relocating, for me, sustainability from the creation, the manufacture of fashion and the disposal of fashion, which both are rich with sustainability opportunities, but I'm trying to locate them in the use of fashion. How can we actually live and breathe sustainability through what we wear every day?
I imagine you didn't just wake up one day and this all just like came to you and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to make and I'm going to be a designer. I'm going to use AI. Where did the fashion journey for you start? Were you always into fashion? And then how was that incorporated with sustainability? Was it always from a sustainable point or did you come there a bit later? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Sweden. My parents back in the small town that I'm from had what you would call like a hobby farm or a moonlight farm. So we had some sheep and we had pigs before I remember, and we had like a number of different animals that we've taken care of. And my mom and dad would shear the sheep in the summers. So we would get wool and we would have a friend coming over and spin the wool into yarn. And it sort of built this relationship with textiles, but then by extension fashion and materials, thinking about it's not just from nondescript.
It doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right?
No,
it has to come from source.
It comes from something. And there are opportunities to like do that in a very wholesome and kind way, where you sort of live in symbiosis with these creatures that give and take from one another, rather than from just this super extractive way that is much how fashion is sort of organized today. So that's where my relationship to fashion sort of started. And then it took me a long journey to sort of get to the point of wanting to dedicate a lot of time to it. Like it was sort of in the periphery for a long time. But then when I started to get into university and deciding where I wanted my creativity to flow, I just found that fashion is the thing that connects deepest with me. And it connects me with others. I think that we experience the world through the fabrics and the materials we wear. Determines how we touch, how we engage, how we interact with one another, how we understand each other through communication. Like, what are you wearing? How does that make me perceive you? And all of those things.
That's so beautiful.
So within that, it becomes so important, right? That's the thing that sort of, again, chimes with sustainability as well. It is this thing we expect, or people forget that you interact with fashion and textiles all day, every day.
Right? You can't escape it.
You can't escape
even
it.
Like people that I think claim themselves unfashionable, like people still have uniforms, right? Even like, Sparkies or tradies, or they still have a uniform. They need certain materials to work in certain conditions.
Yeah. And you still choose what to wear every day. And if that is you choosing to be anti-fashion, that's still a statement
still
you're
a
making.
Choice. Yeah.
Within the world. And again, that determines how you experience the world. And that gives a great opportunity for us to sort of talk about these bigger challenges, but also sort of opportunities that it is to live as a human with a good conscience. And not just a good conscience. Like that's something I also really want to sort of talk about when it comes to fashion and sustainability and these things. It's not necessarily in part to do good. It's also just to live good. Like I find when we talk about pollution and exhaust and like CO2 and all of these things that we want to reduce it because it's good, but it's also you want to breathe clean air.
Yes.
Like I don't want to walk through the city and smell all of these
pollution.
Disgusting smells all the time.
I see that meme all the time where it's like, okay, and then with climate change, we'll have clean water and clean air and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody being like, but what if it's not even real? It's like, well, who cares? It's still a benefit at the end of the day. It's still a net positive that's going to occur from living in more harmony with nature.
Yeah. It's not like this abstract thing of like, we need to stop being bad. It's actually by doing...
It's doing yourself harm as well.
You get to breathe nice air, isn't that?
Like 1 + 1 = 2,
exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. So that's why like sustainability often becomes this sort of field of barrier or this point of contention where people are like fighting against one another for gains of money and whatnot. And that should be part of the conversation. But in the end, we all just want to breathe nice air and live nice lives. And that's what all of these things leads to in the end, if we just commit ourselves to them a little bit.
So in your commitment and your journey, you went to university. What were you studying at university? Was it something to do specifically with fashion? Or
So I had a long, big journey of doing multiple things, but I ended up at RMIT in Melbourne in 2011, and I did textile design to start. which for me was focusing on print, so the colors and patterns that you apply to textiles, but also on weave. So I was weaving a lot on hand looms and bigger looms. I did an exchange semester to India.
Amazing.
Where I had one class I remember so specifically where they had invited like a weaving expert who would tell me as I was weaving that weaving is life. Everything in weaving is up and down. Everything in life is day and night. Weaving teaches you about life just by doing weaving. And that's so stuck with me. And I really like the idea that we then dress ourselves in it. There's all of these beautiful,
elements,
interconnections that we can just sort of, how could I not be interested in doing more in it? But so after I finished that, I did a master in design so that was a bachelor in textile design at RMIT. And then I went back home to Sweden, did a master in design there, where I got more committed to sustainability because the degree was wide. So I could have done almost anything that had to do with design, even apart from fashion. But I lost my grandmother during that time, and I inherited lots of fabrics from her. And I just sort of started working with those fabrics. And that's in and of itself has this sort of connotation of sustainability, of reworking old textiles instead of discarding them, of saving materials, of caring for materials. And working through that within the grief of losing my grandmother sort of made it even more just like, how could I not? This
a mission.
Yeah. This teaches me everything. This lets me connect with so many things, and it lets me remember. That's
just beautiful. Yeah. So I suppose then using that as your fuel, you decided to go on and then pursue a PhD, which you're doing right now. What was the reason for pursuing a PhD even further? You've done your master's and everything. Do you feel like there's still so much to learn? Do you feel like there's so much to say, a specific niche in the area that you've become very dedicated to through your life experiences? Tell us a little bit more about that, and then how you believe it will relate to sustainability on a more, I guess, bigger level, or what your hopes and dreams are for studying this PhD, like what you're hoping will come of it.
Well, I came into the PhD because I spent time within the fashion industry, and I fairly quickly came to realize that it is a machine of capitalism. It is, the bottom line is how many pieces of clothing do you sell when you work for a brand. And often it becomes quite paint by numbers as well. It's not necessarily innovating and creating new styles and having amazing ideas. It's more, what did we sell last year and how can we sell more of that, or which color is going to be trendy next year. Let's make everything according to that. And it
sucks out all of that art and that joy and that story and the weaving of those stories that could make art so impactful and beautiful, right?
So for me, it ended up feeling quite reductive. So then I was really thinking about how can I still get to be me, but get to practice my craft that I am so excited by. And I find also that writing comes not easily, but writing is something that fulfills me as well. So within sort of the confluence of all of those things, I decided to go into the PhD because it allows me to both be academic and think and read and learn and sort of grow my own intellectual connection with materials, but also get to do those materials.
Yeah, still be involved in the fashion world without feeling like so many people I feel that I've spoken to that have studied fashion or have had dreams to be a designer, then get out into the real world and realize just how structured and capitalist and consumerist the fashion industry is, and there's no room for art or for design or for story. So they end up doing something outside of fashion, or such as yourself, I guess, going back and learning it more through an academic lens.
Yeah, exactly. And what's so beautiful, and this is probably different from different universities, but at UTS, I've been lucky enough that I get to design my research project. I get to design my learning journey in a way. So I've proposed a research project that goes across these 3 years. And within that, I've been able to scaffold it into making fashion artifacts that explore the ideas that I have. And through the making, I get to make points or discover new things, or actually say this doesn't make sense, because even though in written format or by a sketch it should look like this and it should teach these things, when I put it under a sewing machine I just can't connect those points. So the practice really informs the research, and that's also so it just makes me feel so lucky to be honest that I get to do that. So yeah.
What's been one of the most exciting, or I guess eye-opening things that you've come across in your research? You're like, oh my gosh, how does not more people not know about this? Or like, how can I tell as many people about this as possible? This is so crazy and interesting.
Well, I would say something that I've come across as a point of contention.
We love some contention. Give us some contention. Yeah.
I sort of came into the research with this argument that artificial intelligence is coming on strong. And it's interesting because it does sort of allow us to think about other intelligences as maybe on par or as at least impactful of human society and human experiences. And by agreeing that artificial intelligence are akin to human intelligence, can we then agree that other intelligences on top of that are also akin to humans? And slowly sort of build this idea that I have that fashion and many like human activities can include and think of and afford more intelligences than just us, and more agencies, including organisms and animals and trees and technologies. But the point of contention I've come across, and as we see in media at the moment, is that perhaps artificial intelligence is not something we want to spend so much time on. There are huge challenges that artificial intelligence engenders rather than resolves. And is that then worthy of our time, our resources, of our energy? And I think that's really tricky. I think it's really valid to go into it. And through my research, I think I can make interesting points about what's worthy our time and what might be interesting things to explore, but also what is not, and what should we perhaps sort of redirect our energies towards. So I'm not trying to say that AI is good, and I'm not trying to say it does everything great. I'm also not trying to say that it's inherently bad. There are maybe things that we can do with technologies that continues to evolve us as societies to live more joyfully and thrivingly amongst everything else thriving as well.
I totally agree. And I feel like in a world right now where social media is so divisive and you either have to be white or black on a opinion, to have the ability to understand shades of grey in all of that and to hold views for both of those arguments, I think is so important. And one thing that I really miss about being at university and studying is being able to have those conversations and explore the grey areas. For you, obviously, you've studied the AI with fashion, and if we can have AI as a form of something to be influenced by or an intelligence, then we can also then use other organisms like animals or something, right, for influence or for education.
Symbiosis and living together.
Would you be happy to tell us more about that, or is that still under research at the moment?
It is still under research, but we can talk about it more, of course.
I would love to. That's so interesting.
Yeah, one device or one sort of approach that has really resonated with me in the research is that I came across this quote or this approach that a very famous academic called Donna Haraway wrote in 2016, which was, she was talking about the notion of ongoingness, that is nurturing or inventing or discovering or somehow coupling together ways for living and dying well together in the tissues of an earth whose very habitability is threatened. And that resonates with me, and I feel like that's also what tells us about what sustainability might need to look like. Because in my experience of sustainability as well, it's becoming slowly a reductive term, or
it's been greenwashed a lot. It's been overexposed. Like that
Exactly.
word's just thrown around. The impact of it doesn't have the same weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does it actually mean, and how can we actually engage with it? And I find that Donna Haraway's sort of way of articulating that is really powerful. And using that device, I've come increasingly across these terms like more than human that we mentioned in the intro, which I also find it's a really interesting term because it sort of implies that it's not just us on this planet, and the planet is more than just us, but also there's no proper, or we should try and sort of prevent this division. So traditionally there's been a lot of talk of human versus nature, whereas this term is trying to rather encompass those things in and amongst each other, and not necessarily giving a higher degree of interest to one or the other. We can all exist together. And it also tries to go beyond the idea of nature or human only being things that have a pulse, only being things that have intention, that it can be things that affect each other, and we can think about those things and how that can be sort of included in our thinking process.
As we progressed, it feels like we've become more and more separate from nature and see it as this thing that we don't necessarily need for survival. It's like we've hacked nature and now we are so separate from it. But we forget that natural disasters still impact us, that we still need food, water, and all of that comes from a relationship with nature. And if we completely discard it or keep polluting it or harming it the way that we are, there's going to be a consequence for that.
Yeah.
But in your mind, what do you think if you could have after doing all this research, like the perfect world for you, how we could live symbiotically, what does that look like, do you think?
Oh, it's a very difficult question.
Very difficult. Just to give you an easy one.
Yeah. I mean, just to throw in another term, just because of that, there's this approach also that thinks about something that they call solar punk.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Do you want to just quickly explain solar punk?
Yeah, which I think that could be a really powerful way of sort of thinking about the future, is the idea of technology and all of these things don't need to be reductive. We can actually apply technology by coming closer together with nature and other entities across the world. And they can sort of, energize each other through a multitude of different sources. So we don't have to sort of lock ourselves into fossil fuels or nuclear or all of these things. There are so many diverse ways that we can bring energy. And I mean energy both in the way of electricity and such things, but energy into our souls and into our spirituality and all of those things. And I think that can be a beautiful vision, or maybe a useful vision of the future. That if we head towards a place, because we have technology, we have materials, we have all of these things already exist, and they continue to be developed almost regardless of what we do. Not saying that we need to sort of support the nefarious forces.
It's that black and white thinking again, right?
Yeah.
We can have both.
Yeah.
We can have that shade of grey where we use the best parts of that technology and we use it towards a better future, rather than continuing down the current path of just more and more growth, quotation marks,
exactly.
And more destruction. I love the solar punk.
I think
vision.
It's a beautiful vision, and I really hope that can keep on informing my research to get to a point where you can sort of propose, well, fashion could maybe function in this way that both honors how humans will feel satisfied, but also allows what we encounter to thrive next to us and together with us.
When you were first getting into fashion, just taking it back a little bit, and so you finished your master's and worked in the fashion industry for a little bit before you went back to your PhD.
Yeah.
You said that was quite disappointing. If you can just go back to that moment, your expectation versus the reality, and why you felt you had to get out. I guess, why couldn't you just knuckle down and try to change it from the inside? Do we think that's possible?
Yeah. I think the thing that comes to mind is that I was sitting in this meeting once and they were describing their product triangle or product pyramid that they had, which was they had a baseline of products, that's the wide range, the thing that sells high volume, to be the simple pieces like a t-shirt and whatnot. And then they had like a middle range that is a little bit more creative, and that can be not as high volume, but still you can add an interesting detail. And then the top part of the pyramid being like, this is high fashion and you can do like really creative stuff, but we don't expect it to have certain amounts of sales figures. And just to break it down that way was disheartening, because you're like, okay, so all we care about is selling loads of t-shirts.
Yeah.
And we just have cool stuff to hook people in. And why are those t-shirts then new? Why are we redesigning or reordering these things every year when there's billions of those t-shirts?
It's not like there's a lack of t-shirts in
the
world.
No, exactly. And then when we actually did talk about the sort of top of the pyramid, and my design director did a little sketch of what that piece might look like, it was a little wool coat. Cool. Okay.
Groundbreaking. Florals for
so
spring.
Exciting. Wow, we're really innovating here, and we're really thinking about, and that sort of.
Is that like a light bulb moment for you? Or like a finally like straw on the camel's back? Is that right? It's like, that's the saying, right? It's just
Something
the system is messed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if I were to stay in it, the most creative thing I could ever sort of have the opportunity to make would still be just another coat. Yeah. And yes, these are coats, but they do a little bit more.
Incredible coats. Yeah. So much more than just like plain jacket. And they represent, and the art behind them is so much more. That meaning, that story.
Yeah. And I understand that when you are working at those large scales for the company values of making money and being profitable, as a lot of society is organized by, it is necessary. Like, you want those sales figures. But if I then commit my career to that, I am committing myself to those sales figures, regardless of the level of creativity I want to apply to it.
Do you think that fashion as we know it now, has a place in the future if we are aiming for that storm punk? Is it storm punk?
Solar
punk. I'm like, I know I'm going to say this wrong. In the solar punk future, or how do you think that fashion has to be completely reimagined in order for it to have a space where it is working with everything sustainability-wise?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a space for fashion. Humans and many other creatures have sort of a need to express themselves, to also protect and dress themselves in many different ways. So we will never not need fashion, considering where we are in the world. But I think what we're missing a little bit is in creativity and innovation, and another concept to throw in there, but frugal innovation. So this idea of you can make incredible things with what you already have.
And I feel like that makes you more creative nearly, because you're limited. There's so much abundance now. Everything's available to us at our fingertips, especially like in the Western world specifically. But that nearly then is like an overwhelm of choice to have only a certain amount of materials. I feel like you can make some incredible things.
You really can. And there's so much materials in the world.
There's too much.
So why would we continue this idea of making new, selling it again, selling more, when we could just sort of look at what we have and keep on inventing on that and with that, and build this sort of really dynamic and interesting way of dealing with fashion that honors the materials that are at hand.
I wish that all new materials would stop production. Like, we've already got so much textiles that are available to us in the world. And then all the designers, all of the clothing brands just had to use what they have or use what's already in existence. And could you imagine the amount of creativity and art that would come back just because you have to?
Yeah.
Like, yes, for a while there'd be the same things cut from the same fabric, but then we'd have amazing individual designs that you could really then express yourself through.
Yeah. And I think there's also a fallacy in this idea that we constantly need like meterage of new woven polyester things to make whatever you're going to make. My friend just gave me 5 bolts of fabric that she just had, that she didn't have any use for. So it's not even necessarily that we need to grab these because that's one of the points of contention, right? That a lot of the industry says, well, if we need to cut apart old fabric or old finished fashion products, that's not efficient. But there's already meterage.
Yes.
There's already, like, if you want to do that.
You just have to walk into a spotlight and see the amount of rolls of stuff.
Exactly.
And there's like a spotlight in every city.
Yeah.
Like, you can imagine.
We can make so much from these fabrics. And it doesn't have to always be brand spanking new. Like, what is this obsession with newness?
Honestly, the whole concept of new is something that I would be super interested in exploring, because what even is new? Like, if you get a brand new, so if something comes straight from the factory, but then it ends up in the op shop because nobody's purchased it, but then you purchase it from the op shop, is that then secondhand or new? And it's like, if you have this fabric that's made, it's not like it's like some clean, pristine fabric that's never touched a person or nobody's ever tried it on. Like, I've worked in retail for many years. People try on clothes all the time and then it goes back on the shop floor because, you know, that's what you do. That'd be crazy if you tried on something and then threw it out so that the next customer had something new. It's like, that's why this whole, it's come around now, but secondhand was seen for a while like, oh, that's so gross. Somebody else has worn that. Yeah. It's like, well, odds are somebody else has worn something that's in your closet as well. Yeah. You know? Mm. So to be able to completely remove that need, which probably has roots in some sort of, we could really get into like the politics of what is considered clean and why it's, you know, it's a whole class conscious thing probably. But there's like so much more that you could do if we were just able to accept all fabrics, and it's just a fabric's a fabric, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, compound that idea of where, like, you don't want to wear something from secondhand because it's been used, but when you buy new, is it new or not? When it's new in the store, it's also treated with so many chemicals to stay fresh. Yeah. So the first thing you should do when you buy a piece of clothing is to wash it. Whereas in op shops, hopefully it's
probably
like,
better for you.
It's probably like less chemicals on your skin in the end.
I'll never forget when I was working at this very popular menswear store, and every week we would get a big shipment of clothes in, and every single one of those shirts it had plastic over it, and you'd take the plastic off and inside there'd be more plastic under the buttons and under the collar, and you'd have to like take it out. And so by the end of one day, you'd have like 2 to 3 massive cardboard boxes just full of plastics, and there's that smell. I can't describe it, but it's like so chemically. And then those clothes then just end up on the racks, or they end up in the back room storage where there's like, frankly, heaps of dust. You know, it's like this whole, it's just like good marketing, you know, to say that, oh, it's clean and fresh and amazing. It's like, no, I like, if you could see how it came into the store, you would be washing everything as soon as you go home, 100%. You know? And the amount of like toxic chemicals that are used in fabrication as well is so damaging. Like if production had to continue at the rate that it's going, I'd be like, okay, but you're only allowed to use natural fibers and it has to be organic because I feel like that would just stop a lot of harm to the environment.
100%. And cottage industries, like, there's this also contention between like, well, people say we shouldn't use polyester because it's plastic and toxic and all of those things, but it actually uses less water than producing cotton. And that is often an argument towards like staying within certain petrochemical materials. But to me, that still doesn't really make sense because plastic keeps on
it stays
existing.
Around forever. Yes, it's like if you had a pile of cotton discarded textile and a pile of polyester discarded textile, guess which one's still going to be around after 100 years?
And if we scale it back down a little bit and just focus in on cottage industries, and I can sort of relive my youth of having sheep and shearing and having like a relationship with these animals. Like, you can build a fashion industry that looks that way rather than this huge machine floors and factories and whatnot with all of the things they spew out when you constantly chase, like we were saying before, to that growth and chase that scale that that a lot of brands are looking for. Do we really need fashion brands at such a scale?
And something else that I've noticed is that we're treating our clothes less and less carefully because there is so much of it. It's sort of like, you know, in the summertime, mangoes are only available in the summer. So therefore I appreciate the mango so much more because I'm like, oh my God, it's sacred. I can only get it for 3 months of the year.
Yeah.
Fashion is so accessible that it's just like, oh, so I'll throw it away. I can get another one.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
In 5 seconds.
Yeah.
To be able to scale it right back and to be like, okay, this brand's only releasing like 10 different looks this whole year.
Yeah.
If you like it, get it. And then it's like you treat it with so much more care because there is that less access to it, I suppose.
Yeah. And within that, like that's perhaps something I'm working towards, the idea of having your textile do more than just for you, and maybe having organisms that thrive on top of your coat. Are you going to throw it away now, or are you going to keep and cultivate it? Are you going to build a relationship with those creatures that might actually be the right types of organisms in your home, might be purifying the air in your living room and instead of air purifiers, for example.
Tell me more about like these organisms. Yeah. So like with the clothing and organisms specifically, how do they coexist?
Well,
in your potential
in my
future.
potential,
in your future that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. In my currently speculative concepts. Well, I think in some ways it's really straightforward. If you have a cotton fabric that's made out of natural fibers, there are organisms that thrive on living with cotton. And you can add layers upon layers with different types of materials that helps these organisms thrive. So, okay, these are wool panels that I've inserted the bark pieces into, but eventually you can sort of dissolve the bark to be a substrate that these these lichen can live on. And lichen cleans the air, and they live forever. So if you just you don't even need it to be at the woven level. It can literally just be like embroider nice things into your pieces that support different creatures. And in the end, you can really have quite easily something that supports more than just you.
So these creatures and the organisms, is it like microscopic level that's like living on it, or is it more... Do tell me.
Yeah, in this case, they're more plants, like fully formed plants.
Yeah.
Like I've collected lichen on these bark pieces and then embroidered the bark pieces in. And yes, lichen grow very slow, so it's going to take a while. But if you take care of it in the right way and you can continuously add a little bits of bark and whatnot, the lichen can spread on top of all of these bark pieces to suddenly you're the tree that hosts the lichen.
So incredible.
And lichen are great for the world, and they live a very long time, and they are great for capturing carbon and all of these different things that you can. And that's just one concept. You can surely expand that concept to include other organisms and other substrates. And I know there are innovations working towards making fabric out of algae. But perhaps we should make fabric that hosts algae, and maybe that's possible. And you can sort of reverse those ideas, because that's sort of when the more than human concept comes back in, that where now a lot of the fashion innovation is still focused on putting the human front and center, and it's for the humans' end goals. But if we sort of redistribute that focus so multiple things can come into focus, maybe... we can make fashion that isn't just for us, but for the world we live in.
I love that concept so much. And I can just imagine a world where people are living more than human designs. There's so many things that we could incorporate into fashion to help these animals or to coexist somehow.
Yeah. And because it's so present in our lives and it encounters so many different spaces, there's so much opportunity to think about it. I am slowly working on this idea of a jumpsuit that has vents and openings that invites air to travel across the body and expel in certain particular points. And in those points, you can add filters. So essentially, you can wear an air filter.
So as you're walking, like the air comes through.
Exactly.
See, that is so cool.
And through that, you could take a little bit of responsibility for the pollution that is in the air. And maybe those filters are replaceable, so you can wash them out and you can make sure you collect and reduce some of the negative impact that the world around us and the manufacturing of fashion has through your clothes.
think of all the running shoes that could generate energy or electricity or something.
Exactly, yeah. There's so much opportunity for that. But we keep on coming back to that basic T-shirt that you just want a billion of.
Now, what else in your studies have you come across that you think is super important to get across?
Very big sort of discussion that's happening around AI at the moment is the resource intensity of using it. And that needs to be really well considered. I don't think the way many companies are producing AI operations now are very defensible.
Do you think there should be some sort of policing on AI use? Like you can only use it if you're doing X, Y, or Z with it? Or is that then, I guess, a bit of grey territory as well onto who gets to use it and who doesn't? Going back, I guess, to the very beginning of this conversation where we are talking about AI and its potential benefits but also its harms, in what way do you think we should be using AI in the future, or now into the future, to get the most benefits with the minimal amount of harm?
I think that's super complicated and super difficult because there's so many instances of using AI now, so many different ways companies and people are using them. I think it's going to be really hard to police, even though I think it's quite necessary, at least at a certain scale. At the same time, I think some of it will sort of erase itself. Some uses of AI as they are being used will sort of find their own barriers and be then end up in disuse just through people being like, this doesn't work, this doesn't make sense, this is just too exhausting.
Yes. It's like there's already so much content even people using it for advertisements now, businesses using it for advertisements, and people clocking that it's an AI ad and they're like, no, I'm not going to buy from you because you use an AI ad.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, how is that AI better than just using humans and whatnot?
Yeah.
I just came across this video earlier today of someone talking about the doorman fallacy, that there's this idea that technologies can be applied to perform really menial tasks and then replace the person working. So it's really easy to have a machine opening and closing a door for people coming and going through a building. But that's assuming that that's all that the doorman does. But the doorman does a lot of other things that are not perceptible in the same way, with creating a nice environment by greeting people, acting as security by sort of curating who comes and goes. And it has all of these not hidden, but maybe unseen qualities to it. And I think that there's a lot of application deployment of AI that assumes that one task is done in this one way. And
that's
then when
the
they
best way.
Yeah. And as soon as they deploy it, they're like, oh shit, all of these other things are crumbling around it. Why is that? And that, I think, is going to be a strong also self-regulation thing that the AI is going to go through. Like, it's not going to be used as extensively very quickly because people are going to be like what you said, why would I buy from this brand when it's a fake image that's...
And I feel like skills would also disappear. I'm so glad I got out of university right before ChatGPT sort of became very mainstream, because how tempting it would be as a student to use AI to help write your essays. And while it can definitely be used as a tool, I fear that if we're always using AI or ChatGPT to summarize things or to write things, we're not actually having to think critically for ourselves. It gives you an answer, and how it decides what answer is the best answer. That's a very heavy question and heavy topic. What resources is it pulling from to come to that conclusion? And if everybody's reading from it, does that mean that there's not going to be any difference of opinion anymore?
Yeah. I also find that really interesting when people also choose to use AI to sort of perform certain tasks, because then, to me, in my experience, in writing, trying to be a good writer, I'm trying to be good at this. Why am I giving that task to something else then? Because I'm not then getting the benefit of learning how to do it well. So of course, that depends on people's different needs and wants and whatnot. But it surprises me when people choose to use AI to perform their own sort of passion.
It's is this not something that you've been wanting to work on and build skill around? And it's really the reward is how hard it was to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's through exertion that you feel satisfied as well. I think that once you spend time on something and you're passionate about it and you spend energy that might be hard, once it actually succeeds, that reward would be so much sweeter than if you've sort of taken all of these shortcuts along the way.
I feel like that heavily relates back to fashion as well, in a sense where it's like, if it's so easy to click of a button to make a garment, you lose all of the love of, you know, how long did it take you, for instance, to make these designs from conception to creation and all the research that you had to do? Do you remember?
I mean, that coat would have taken me 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And this one would have been 3 months or so.
And how precious and lovely to have that story. And I feel like if more people were able to see that time, so many young designers that are coming in spend so much time on each piece, and each piece is then a piece of art and then is cared for. And again, to be able to care for that fabric, especially if we're bringing a more than human element to it, where we do have to spend time to wait for the things to grow or for things to work throughout the clothing to have that positive impact. Things are too fast these days, and we just want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And there's no slow.
Yeah.
We need to bring back slow fashion, I fear, which is like a really big thing.
Yeah. I also find in that conversation, I came across this again, but it's really interesting how we sort of frame AI as creating these sort of frictionless systems of making, of producing, of existing, as if friction is something bad. But I think there is beauty in friction, and there's learning in friction. It is by coming across things that don't work or that you're struggling with resolving that you discover something new, or you make something more meaningful, or you change what you were doing so it's better. Even in fabric and fashion, that sort of is a nice metaphor for it, because if I'm sewing something by hand and I can't resolve an issue and then I change the design due to that, that might be a discovery I would have come across if I was just asking digital services to sort that out for me. And then also when it comes into production, maybe that issue will stop production rather than having been solved already because you tried to make it. So I think there's a really interesting sort of there's a reductive idea that friction is negative. With friction, we find sort of these tense moments of excitement that can really help us find passion, I think.
And I think that what we can really see that as well. For those that don't know, Björn is one of our mentors at Slogue. And when we work with the kids, when they're doing the sewing classes, they've only got a limit. They've got, was it frugal, as you said before, frugal amounts of fabrics to work with, and it's scraps, and it might not be a full roll of something, or they might be working with a shirt that's got a big stain or a big hole. But they're so creative, and they can just unleash so much creative potential by just using what they have and making something out of thin air and not having to worry about it looking perfect necessarily, but just having fun with it.
Yeah, and I think there's something really important in learning those things. I had a student a couple of months ago who was trying to make a skirt, and it didn't really work the way they wanted it to work. So they gave up. So instead of sort of learning how to deal with friction and overcome these kinds of challenges, sewing sounds like a basic example, but you can extrapolate that across a lifetime, and perhaps it builds a certain level of resiliency that we all need to navigate as being humans. So even in these moments of sewing something and it doesn't work, you might just learn a bigger lesson. And that's also really important. Like, that's why it's so lovely to work with these kids too, to see who they are through what they make and how they can grow through what they make.
Well, Björn, if you could have the power to tomorrow, you wake up and you've got all the power in the world, and you could change one thing in fashion tomorrow, what would that be and why?
So I thought about this.
Fabulous.
But I would honestly go back to exactly what the point you were making before. Stop doing new. And that's not necessarily stop purchasing new clothes. It's stop making clothes from virgin materials. That's a complex thing to do. It takes time, and it might not be as easy as it sounds. But if we start there, that will really help us get on a path where we can sort of recapture how we make things and where we connect to like cottage industries and support those ideas instead. Stop making fashion from new stuff. Yeah.
Just stop it. Stop it already. No, I love that answer. I totally agree with that.
I mean, that would be step one, right? Because like we were saying, there is so much made from virgin materials, made in such ways that it sort of is more harmful than beneficial. So if we just take a break and stop making virgin materials and work with what we've got, to innovate, to be frugal, to think, to sort of breed stronger creativity, then eventually maybe we can start coming back to these really nice cottage industries. But for now, just let's take a break.
Yes, please. The world is begging.
And us too, we're tired.
Well, Björn, where can people follow your story, or how can they find you? Or if there's anything else you'd like to plug, please go for it. Now is the time. Yeah, if there's anything else you want to say, please. Yeah.
I'm such a basic person that the only place I have is Instagram at the moment.
Instagram's all you need.
And I don't know if I should say the whole handle or...
Yeah, go for it. And I'll put it on the screen as well.
Great.
So,
It's my full 3 names, which is Carl, Björn, Edward.
Fabulous.
Because my parents decided that I'm fancy.
You are fancy. You're a fancy man.
It feels so royal to say all 3, but yes.
Own it.
Yeah.
You look very royal right now with your jacket and everything.
And sweating.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fascinating to hear all about your studies and your journey with fashion and sustainability. And I cannot wait to live in a world where we've got more than human design.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the Fixing Fashion podcast. If you'd like to dive deeper into the conversation, head over to our YouTube channel, where you'll find bonus clips, visuals, and additional content from each episode. You can also follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with the latest episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and announcements. If you'd like to support the podcast, visit our Substack and become a monthly subscriber for a little more than the price of a coffee. Your support helps us continue these conversations and bring new episodes to the show. We release new episodes every second Wednesday. Thanks for being a part of the Fixing Fashion community, and we'll see you again in a fortnight.